Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alright, today's video is going to be about how to deal with bullies. All kinds. I mean, that's manipulators, people who belittle you, people who disrespect you, violate your boundaries, etc., etc., etc. So I'm gonna try to cover as best as I can, I guess, the topic. Okay, give me a second, I gotta cross the street. Okay, so maybe how about I start with a story? Okay, so when I was in high school or my adolescence, I grew up in hood. I grew up in the ghetto. Not in the heart of the ghetto, but that connects to the story, right? Anyways, so that kind of made me like not, having friends from the center of the hood, not really having, any sort of backing, or any sort of people that I could rely on to have my back. I was kind of a lone wolf, especially with, even having siblings and like brothers and whatnot. They didn't go to the same high school as me or anything. And my friends were, not really a part of, any sort of big mob or group or anything to like have, to be in a position to like defend ourselves if we, get threatened. Right? So anyways, I'm walking home from school one day and I get jumped, by, a couple of bullies, right? So, like cowards do, getting, jumping from behind, but that's the world. It's not like how you want it to be. It's not just some ideal thing where it's like, two guys with controllers press start and then it's like something. No. And that's a lesson you gotta learn early in life. And then how you deal with it after. That's a different conversation, about like how you choose to be in the world. Are you going to be some moralist? Are you going to be someone that's slimy and fights dirty? Whatever. That's maybe a different conversation for a different video. Point is, I got jumped from behind me, man. And, like I said, not really having any sort of group or friends of my own that I can feel like if I were to, try to get my revenge or try to confront these guys who jumped me from behind the next day or even the same day, I would probably just end up putting myself in a position, right, because I was bigger than these bullies. But chances are, if I were to retaliate, these guys would just, I'm just rationalizing when I was a kid, I was like, these guys are probably just going to get their friends. And that's going to put me in a position where I'm going to get, more hurt, right, than I initially did in the first place. So that's what I rationalized to myself as a kid. And here's what I would say to that kid. I would say, look, that's a decent enough, rationale and way to, put it to, try to protect yourself, but in reality, no. That's not what I would do, or that's not what I would advise somebody in that situation. And it could be controversial, maybe people wouldn't want to hear it, but honestly, bro, literally, like it doesn't matter if they're gonna go and they're gonna try to get back at you, or they're gonna get people, or because like in that scenario, a couple of snot-nosed kids, whatever it is, they're not gonna go and try to like kill you or anything. The most they're gonna do is they're gonna beat you in if you like, you get the jump on one of those guys, you end up, standing up for yourself and having that dignity. Chances are, yeah, they're probably gonna get you, and they're gonna call their friends and they get you even worse. And you're gonna get banged up, but I would still recommend that, knowing that. And the reason why it's very important. It connects with self-respect and dignity. And funnily enough, can I tell you this much? After that, even if they don't like you or anything, they'll just respect you and it probably won't bother you. Because here's the thing, right, with bullies. Bullies bother people who are botherable. They bother victims. They victimize people who could be victims. But if you're just being like just someone problematic, they're gonna say, no, man. You know, even like I'm gonna give this guy, like, this guy's not, he's annoying. He takes the fun out of it, you know, he makes everything so difficult. Let me go pick on someone, you know, that's not gonna be a hassle. So, that being said, you gotta recognize that people victimize victims. All right. So, this is something that you gotta remember, right? When you're in this position where, you know, you feel your chest is tight, you know, your stomach feels heavier than it should, you have to recognize that at the end of the day, bro, like, the reality is, like, your answer is literally to, like, actualize that fear you have in your head of that scenario of you going up and confronting whoever the fuck that person is that's trying to bully you. Because here's the reality, right? In doing that and going to that person and asserting yourself to that person or whatever, that's it. It's just like, it's not this elaborate thing. Like, people think, like, or at least I used to think, to be honest. I don't want to project on anybody here. You know, maybe people do relate, but it's like, no, bro. It's not some like strategic thing that you need to plan out in order to neutralize their psychological and physical warfare. No, dude. All you have to do is show that you're willing to push back. Because the second you push, honestly, not even physically, like the second you're just standing there with the correct posture, the body language, the countering, actually no, forget the verbalization, just ready to like confront them, and they're knowing that you're gonna confront them about whatever it is that they're picking on you about. That in and of itself just signals to them, okay, yeah, you know what, next time let's not even bother with this one. So just like I might be done. I think that might be enough to cover it all. But oh yeah, I think I'll end off on some last points here. And just to bring back up that thing of dignity, right? Self-dignity and respect. That's so important. That's so important because the thing about having dignity, right? It's a private thing. It's not some interpersonal, badge and trophy of honor it's really deeply personal between you, your heart. Because chances are, right, if you find yourself in a position where you know and you have proven memory of you actually being somebody who is dignified enough to stand up for himself or herself, then what happens is you can have the strength that when you're alone to not be tormented by the waswas of shaitan or by intrusive thoughts, as Western minds would say, right? So that's like a major point of really taking care of that self-dignity, right? And also it has to do with self-trust too as well, which is the more like the offensive side of it. Because if self-dignity is defending yourself from negativity that you have to repel, the ability to say no when you're alone, then self-trust is being able to say yes when you have to come with the conviction to go for the things that you want in life and to pursue the dreams and the goals that you want in life and actualizing them, right? So the way that, honestly, I feel like you can even get a lot of the audacity to be able to stand up for yourself in a lot of these ways is to have a relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like, I can't even lie to you, man. Honest to God. Like, it just fills me up so much to know the concept of La ilaha illallah. Literally the concept that there is no object, no person, no deity, nothing worthy of worship except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the creator, right? Because that just puts something in my heart to know that at the end of the day, we're all equal before him. It doesn't matter how big and strong and or poor or wealthy you are, you know, whether it's in this life or the next, you're gonna submit willingly or unwillingly. And you kind of, like, even this life, that happens too. You think however rich somebody is, they can just, you know, disobey the laws of the universe when their body is saying, I gotta sleep, I gotta eat, I gotta relieve myself, right? So here's the thing, right? Like literally knowing and being fully aware that God is with you, he's literally, he says that he's with you in more ways than we know, because we know of things like hearing and seeing and these faculties that we can utilize, but we can't even grasp just how much of, like, for example, I believe it's the Quran that says Allah knows, like a you know, when like you see leaves dropping from the trees, that leaf, which is so astronomically small in relation to like everything that just is, right, from the observable and unobservable universe, it just kind of like, it's baffling to know that like Allah is really aware of the smallest little detail. He's aware. And so when you have him in your heart and he's full in your heart, it's like you're genuinely standing, that gives a certain calm that no amount of money or youth can buy, right? That's why you see some amazing things, like, you know, comparing two people, one guy who's a fitness guru, he's so strong, but he can't lift up his blanket when he has to wake up for Fajr. And then you got the other guy who's scrawny and weak. He can't lift up a 5 kg dumbbell, but he'll be standing up all night in prayer, remembering his Lord when nobody watches him. So it's like, it's a real thing that God can inspire power in your heart, spiritual power, right? So that being said, like, it's worth noting in respects to, you know, this discussion I'm having about, you know, self-trust and dignity and all that, right? Like, so I think that was the last point I wanted to leave off on. Yeah, so that's I think I was talking about self-trust, you know, and being able to go for the things you want, right? And why it's important, you know, to recognize, like, that you have to actually stand up for yourself. It's because of that self-trust aspect, right? And, you know, when you put yourself in these positions to do what you got to do in order to protect your peace, you're telling yourself for future scenarios when you're on your own and it's between you and your heart to do and to pursue and actualize the dreams that you want to, you know, experience, then you're going to need that trust built up in, you know, your experiential bank. And so I guess that's the last thing I'd say. Barakallahu feekum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.